Thank you, Magdalena, for such beautiful music to welcome us here. And we look forward to hearing more of your playing in a little bit. It's wonderful to see you all here today. Thank you so much for coming out on this beautiful day. I'm Sarah Dumont. I'm the Executive Director of AU Abroad. And we've gathered together here today, friends and family, to celebrate the life of Mary Carmen Caballero, who was with AU and with our program for 18, 19 years, nearly 20 years of being part of our family at AU. We're just going to have a number of people speak and share their memories and remember all the things that Mary Carmen gave to us. I arrived at AU nearly 11 years ago to start my job as director of the first office of AU Abroad. And when we started that office, the foundation of our programs were a group of very fine programs that had been in existence for quite some time before I came, known as the World Capitals programs. And Madrid was one of those programs, and there were 2 semester programs in Madrid, one in the fall, one in the spring, slightly different, under Mary Carmen's guidance. And when I came to AU, I had a lot to learn, and I spent my first weeks and months just trying to learn about the programs. One of the first things that became clear to me as I learned this was that this person who was in charge of the programs in Madrid did way, way, way too much for the students. You know, we call that hand-holding in study abroad, and those of you who know me know that I am not in favor of hand-holding of students. And I don't think it's good for student development, and I think it encourages an unhealthy attitude towards study abroad. And in Madrid, it was clear to me that there was also a very unhealthy attitude of idolatry towards this woman. Everyone I met who knew her, they couldn't even talk coherently about this person. This was a very serious problem, I thought. I was going to have to address this. I was going to have to rectify it as soon as possible. And I was braced for some very rocky times with the person I referred to as that woman in Madrid. Then Mary Carmen came to DC and I met her. And shortly after that, I went to Madrid and got to know the program, and I got to know her even better. And at that point, I was the self-appointed president for life of the Mary Carmen Caballero fan club. Totally bowled over. It's not that I didn't think that she did too much for the students. She did. She always did. But she did too much for everybody. She did too much for me. She did it all the time. She did it for people she hardly knew. I used to say to my mother, whom she'd never met, that if my mother arrived in Madrid on Christmas Day, Mary Carmen would insist on picking her up at the airport and showing her around and spending all of the holiday day with a person she'd never met just because she was associated with me. This was the kind of thing that Mary Carmen did, and she could no more stop herself doing it than she could stop herself from breathing. We're here today, excuse me, as a confirmation of that. It was only a terrible disease that stopped her breath that could stop her at the end. And that was only at the very end. Up until the last few months, she was still doing too much for everybody, including me. Mary Carmen and I shared a love of learning. We shared a love of students and a love of the excitement that comes when you can successfully blend the academic components of a program with all of the other things that can teach students everything a country can teach them. I don't deny what everyone says about her angelic presence in our lives, and you see a lot of that in the book and in the things that we have displayed. But I'm here to tell you too, she had an absolutely wicked sense of humor. And sometimes I felt that when she was with me, she could let loose with that a little bit. And we spent a lot of our time together over bottles of wine, laughing a lot about all kinds of things. We also disagreed a lot. You know, I didn't agree with everything she did, not just the doing too much for everybody. One of our main disagreements pitted her eternal optimism and positivism against my more cynical nature about the goodness of the world. But one thing I always knew was true, which was that she loved all of us, and none of us ever thought she would leave us this soon. During all the times we'd sit together in Madrid or here in DC, talking and laughing into the night over a bottle of wine, and I would tell her all my woes, and she would always make me feel better. And she would always cheer me up by reminding me that because we're about the same age, that we should look forward to the time when we were going to be little old ladies together, and that we would sit together at her house in her beloved hometown of Vigo and watch the sunset over the water, reminiscing about and laughing about old times and old heartbreak over a good bottle of wine. And, you know, she really knew her wine. I realized I always counted on that. Whenever I had a hard time, I would think about those days ahead of me when we'd be little old ladies sitting over a bottle of wine and laughing. And every time life threw me a curve, I'd hang on to that thought of my old age with Mary Carmen. And now I have to figure out how to do it without her. I don't believe I'm the only one in the room that she shared that dream with. There are a bunch of us here today, women of a certain age or close to it, and I imagine you too were counting on those days in your future with Mary Carmen filled with good wine in Vigo watching the sunset over the water. I think that we all owe it to ourselves and to Mary Carmen to make that dream come true. We should all make that trip to Vigo together. We should get ourselves some really excellent Spanish red wine and sit and drink and laugh and watch the sunset over the water. And our Mary Carmen will be there with us. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Bria Doyle, and I'm one of the assistant directors in the AU Abroad office. Mari Carmen was just like the bright sun in the sky, and I think she instantly drew you in with her energy and her warmth. I can still remember exactly when that happened to me. The exact first memory I have of her, as many of us in this room did, I walked through the sliding glass doors in the Madrid airport on my arrival day for my semester abroad. The first thing I saw was her beaming, beautiful smile as she exclaimed, "Bienvenido a Madrid, sweetie." I instantly felt at home and at ease, and from that moment on, I knew that I was in very good hands. Our semester was a difficult one. It was the first iteration of the Mediterranean program. The 9/11 attacks happened a few short weeks after our arrival in Madrid. Mari Carmen handled the situation with grace and empathy as she comforted our group of 34 American students. Suddenly, our planned field trips to other areas of the Mediterranean needed to be canceled and changed to other parts of Europe deemed more safe. During our unforgettable trip through France and Italy, as every visit went off without a hitch, you would never have known that it was thrown together in a matter of a week or two. After returning to the US, I started working in the study abroad office at AU, and I realized the luck of being able to now call Mari Carmen a colleague. Always the mentor, she frequently advised me about my career path. She also welcomed me to Madrid with open arms during many site visits back to Spain. I will fondly remember many long lunches in which she counseled me on everything from my personal life, my professional life, my love life, and how to best to approach any difficult problem that I faced, and I think we all shared similar conversations with her. Mari Carmen visited Washington, D.C. from time to promote the programs, and never in my life have I felt more like I was walking with a celebrity than when I walked across campus with Mari Carmen. Former students would catch a glimpse of her from K, and she was here in front of the library and come running. I knew I had to schedule at least a half an hour in between meetings because we would never make it anywhere without running into someone, and she remembered each and every one of us. and she always took the time to get an update on someone's life when she ran into them. She had such a unique way of making each and every one of us students feel like they were her special one, and indeed we all were. When I saw her for the last time earlier this year in March, it was about a month before she passed away. Despite her illness and weakness, she wanted to host those of us visiting the program at her house to watch a football game between Real Madrid and Barcelona with Rafa. The game's outcome had big implications for Atletico's standing at the time. Those of you who know Rafa will realize just how special of an evening we were in for. We laughed, we drank cava, we ate tapas, we listened to some of her favorite songs, including a walkthrough of every single lyric to Gracias a la Vida. And we also watched the game, of course, and shared an amazing night. After we left her apartment, I realized that it was likely one of the happiest evenings I'd ever had. No amount of illness or discomfort was going to stop her from enjoying a visit with friends. And that is a good lesson for us all to take away. I'm so lucky to have been able to have her in my life, and I know I will never again meet anyone like her. Just like the sun that sets yet comes back the next day, Mari Carmen is not completely gone from our lives. The message that radiated out of her was that you should always live life to the fullest, live life in the now, and follow every single one of your true passions and dreams. That message will live on in each and every one of us in this room. That message will live on in everyone else she touched, and certainly live on in the 1,200 plus AU students that were lucky enough to have been hosted by her in Madrid. By promising ourselves to live that way and encouraging others to do so, she is still very much with us and always, always will be.
Can't really see over this, but I'll try. My name's Joy McFarland. I studied 2 programs in 2001, also the crazy one that Bria was talking about, and the one previous before that. I also then ended up living up to the superlative they gave me at our final dinner, which was least likely to ever leave, and I stayed until a year and a half ago. So that was the next 12 years after the 4 months I was going for. And that was beautiful. So I know many of you from studying with you, working with you, or just as family and friends. So I will try to do this justice. We'll try. The first thing I have to say is from Elena, who most of you know but was not able to be here today. She's, of course, making the lives of Class of Mediterranean Fall 2014 as wonderful as all of you had. So that's what she's doing today, but she wanted me to say for her, she will always remember Mari Carmen, and the best way that we can carry on her legacy is to be grateful for having known her and to give thanks to life, which of course you all understand, and that way she will live on in each of us. So listen to Elena and do that for her, okay? And this part's from me. When I was student teaching, I had 2 cooperating teachers to learn from. One, Charlie, told me, don't smile till Christmas. Be very stern, and the students will start to respect you. The other cooperating teacher, Gadi, she told me, no, you be yourself, and your love for the students, it will earn their respect, and they will love you back. Obviously, I opted for the second, because it was the only thing I'd ever known, and I think you all can relate to that. That's how we were taught. You all remember day 1, as Bria was talking about, whether it was 20 years ago or 5 years ago. After the trip, the jet lag, the hotel, the walking tour, you were inevitably brought to a restaurant where you were given all this strange food that you ended up loving and then go out to dinner and have. And you know, you just look around and you hear Mari Carmen give the first night speech. You all know what I'm talking about, that chicos, we would become a family. We're going to have good things, we're going to have bad things. You might hate each other sometimes, you might love each other sometimes, but in the end, love will conquer it. She wasn't kidding. In my semester, we had heart attacks, September 11th, couples, love, arguments, dancing on a disco boat in Venice. But through it all, one thing really was true. This woman loved us, and to her, education and educating us was not about class, and it was not about books, but teaching us how to live. She took us to eat, she spent weekends with us, showed us the world, encouraged us to visit new places, meet new people, learn new things, and she showed us Spain, her language, her land, and her life through her eyes, so we could learn to love it as she did, and we did. Too much. She would spend endless hours playing with the budget so that the chicos could see one more city or one more part of the Mediterranean. And she taught us how to treat people by treating our bus drivers or the waiters just as she treated the Minister of Education. She taught us to be grateful and to always give thanks for everything and for life. She did this because she truly loved educating all of us. This love was so strong that she made us better versions of ourselves by giving us the best version of herself. She knew that by giving us her all, we would rise to meet her, and we did. Mari Carmen, Reina, Tata, Marty, however you knew her, you know that her greatest fault was also her greatest virtue. She only saw the best in people. Sometimes that was really annoying. Like you'd go and tell her a story, and she'd be like, Chicky, don't worry. That's not a problem. Just feel bad for them, really. I don't know if I can ever get to that level of altruism that everyone who annoys me, I should feel bad for because it's not their problem. But that was how she was. She only saw the best in all of us. And not the best that we already were, but the best that we were going to become. She saw all the possibilities that lay in front of each of us, and she made us believe in them as well. Raise your hand if you have an advanced degree. Raise your hand if you work in something that you are passionate about every day. Keep your hand raised if one or both of those things is true because she made you believe that that was possible. There you go. She always said she didn't care what we wanted to be, if we wanted to be a waitress, a doctor, or a truck driver, as long as we didn't have to be a truck driver. Education, education, education. She wanted all of us to find our passion, follow our hearts, and go after whatever that path was with all of our might. She could see those people at the ends of those paths that we were going to become. When we were too young to even know which path we were going to choose, she could see that finished product, and she made us believe that it was going to happen as well. As my friend Rick always said, you can't look her directly in the eyes because you're going to sit down for a 2-hour coffee and suddenly you're going to get up, you're going to have applied to grad school to do your doctorate and you're dedicating a book to the woman. It was like 2 hours. What happened? But it happened to all of you and you know what I'm talking about. Years later, when she was part of my daily life and not this larger than life thing that we all idolized, I still realized she never really shined as brightly as when she was talking to a group of you or us. At Thanksgiving, orientation, farewell dinner, she truly loved this job and she truly loved each and every one of us. She would spend every free Sunday writing hundreds of recommendation letters to get us into that next phase of life. Whether it be a doctoral program or a job, she wanted to make it happen, and no one rejoiced as much as she did when one of us would follow our dreams. More than one person said they'd been shocked at reading the Facebook page that AU set up, because as they went through it, they were realizing that it wasn't just they or their programs that had been the special ones. She had that amazing and rare ability to make each and every one of us feel, at least at some point, as though we were the most important person in her world. My friend Jeff, he asked me recently, how are we supposed to make decisions now? How do we decide what to do when a fork in the road presents itself and we can't call her up and say, Reina, what do I do? I told him, and I'm telling you, I actually think that's pretty easy. She already taught us everything we need to know. Follow your heart, follow your passion, and the rest will follow. And she was right. Look around, we did become a family. There are so many people in this room that love each other, and we have so many experiences that unite us. The ripple effect that this one woman set in motion is really unfathomable. I was at an AU Alumni Red Sox game recently with Miss Teresa over there, and she did a program 6 years after I graduated, but I was in Madrid, I met her, she ended up staying in Madrid, she worked at Mosaic, now she went to Boston for grad school, and now she works with me there. This is just an example, but these kinds of long-term relationships and how all of our lives are forever intertwined is the legacy that she leaves us. To love one another, help each other get closer to achieving those dreams and to becoming those people that she saw. We can do it. I'm not sure which one of us, which group of you it was. As the years went on, I kind of lost track a little bit of which ones you were, but at your final dinner, you sang the song from Wicked. I don't know exactly where this came from because I'd never seen this crazy musical because I didn't live in the States, but I do always think this song perfectly sums up our relationship to this woman, and I will read some now. I've heard it said that people come into our lives for a reason, bringing something we must learn, and we are led to those who help us most to grow. Sorry. If we let them, and we help them in return. I don't know if I believe it's true, but I know we are who we are today because we knew you. Thank you.
Around 1995, Carmen Caballero became the director of the World Capital's Madrid program. It was around this time that I had the pleasure of coming to AU. And I learned that when Maria came to AU, she left a holy grail position in her professional life. She left a job at a university in New York. This is what everyone seeks for in the world of academics. Well, at AU, we ended up with the Holy Grail with Maria Caballero because to me, over these decades, she has come to represent the very best of this institution. She represents caring and supportive international education in a very real way. I first have memories of Maria Carmen when I was introduced to her from my good colleague, Catherine Kravitz, the then director of the World Capitals program. Maria Carmen bestowed on me an exotic and vibrant, bright pink plant with flowers that welcomed me to my then role as the associate director of the World Capitals program back in 1998. The beauty of that plant remains vivid in my mind, as does the image of Maria Carmen in my mind and her impeccable style. She would always arrive at an orientation event, at whatever the goings-on were, looking like she could walk off the cover of a magazine. She would wear her tailored dress with flair with a certain kind of a scarf or a panache. She always looked together that you would never be jealous, okay, maybe just a little. That beauty, though, was topped off with her most phenomenal accessory, and that was a radiant smile that would light up the room and that would always illuminate the ideas that she was expressing. Speaking of radiance, every time I would open the evaluations at the end of a term from the Madrid and Mediterranean program, I would eagerly anticipate the contents within. And in London, for example, I noticed that students would blame the local staff that the inhabitants, that the British were walking on the wrong side of the street. And students somehow would think that's the fault of the faculty and staff. In Beijing, students would criticize the faculty when it was hard to find a good burger or their legs felt quite fatigued walking up the Great Wall. In Australia, the students would complain about the faculty and the staff when there were too many bugs and critters walking around in their bedrooms. On the contrary, in Maria's evaluations, there were consistently 100% positive, glowing evaluations about this experience. The affection for Maria Carmen and her connections with Spain were boundless. Time and time again, students would write that Maria Carmen taught me more in one semester than in all of my 4 years at AU. And I felt this, as Rita was explaining minutes ago, as I walked around campus and I felt like I was on the arm of Julia Roberts, the Spanish version of her. And students would sprint across campus, knocking down their colleagues almost to get their hands on their beloved director. Of course, Mari Carmen was always student-centered. She held the hand of a student with a severe peanut allergy in the ICU of a hospital and reassured those parents and that student that all would be okay, and things were okay. She was invited to and then participated in the weddings and joys of alums of their lives following our Spanish program. And she beautifully managed the multiple roles of a study abroad director, whether it was the caring in loco parentis, the Spanish version of mom, to the dozens of students that were in her class every term. She was the brilliant academic and the impeccable organizer. She would help students to understand the numerous cultural influences in Spain, from Catholic and Christian and Jewish and Moorish. All of these things she brought together so students could better see history and culture. My old boss, Dean Dave Brown, would say, 50 students is too many for your popular programs. And she would say in reply, no, send them all. I can take them all. And they all, likewise, fell in love with her. And everyone fell in love with Spain. They partied to the late nights. I heard stories of all the fun eating paella, drinking red wine, the language, the Spanish masterpieces that students saw, the traveling around the country, visits to Seville, to a farm she knew well, learning Spanish and learning about themselves. Across the cultures and these differences in habits and people, this is where students start to learn. This is where students start to realize that we're all mostly the same across all the differences. This is what I remember of Mari Carmen. Every time I see a vibrant pink plant, I am reminded of Mari Carmen. And anytime I need inspiration about excellence in caring education, I think of Mari Carmen. While Mari Carmen passed away, I know that Mari Carmen's spirit is here forever, as her impact on our lives remains strong.
Good afternoon, everyone. Most of you know to me, I'm Francisco Gomez. You know me like Paco. I started to work with Mari Carmen the last century in 1999. And she was my boss, but more than that, she was my friend and the person who touched me the 90.9% that I know. Then, as you know now, I'm the current director of the Madrid program. I'm a lucky man because I can continue with her work, with something that she created like almost 20 years ago. But at the same time, I'm not very lucky because she's not here, okay? Then it's a mixture of feelings. When I think that I will continue working with her, but it's not possible, then my mind get blocked, but okay. That's the reason because several months ago when Sarah Dumont and Awilda Marquez and all the team of AU Abroad told me, Paco, we are going to do a memorial in AU and you will be there and you have to give a speech. Then I start to write in that moment. 4 months later, I didn't write anything at all. As you can see, I don't have nothing in my hands. Why? Because the reason was that every time that I started like with a lot of energy, very good, but 2 minutes later, my piece of paper was wet. What is happening? Then when I realized that I was crying, I said, okay, I will continue tomorrow. And one day, another, we are in September 20th. And then I have a real problem. But okay. Then that I tried to do, 1 week ago I said, okay, fine, let's go. Only you have to, in that moment you are going to explain what is Mari Carmen for you. Then you have to find some adjectives, some ideas, and that's all. Put in your mind, okay, in my mind are not, but are here in my heart, okay? Then I went to try to look for 3 words to explain what is Mari Carmen for me, and I'm sure that for all of you. The first word that is coming from my heart is smile. Every time that I think in Mari Carmen, and I suppose that all the student, family, and friends are according with that, are totally agree, is that she was always smiling. Then it's incredible. I never saw her mad. I never saw her sad. Even in the last weeks, that was really, really difficult weeks for her. When I asked to her, Mari Carmen, ¿cómo estás? How are you? She always said, bien, smiling. And I knew that it's not good. Then it's incredible to think that until the last moment, that woman was smiling and giving thanks, gracias a la vida, as you know. Then this is the first idea that came from Mari Carmen to me. The second one is love, because all my colleagues mentioned it before, no? Mari Carmen is love in capital letters. Look at that. I see students from 2003, 2004, 2006, last semester students. I mean, it's too much. And that's because Mari Carmen was that. The love in capital letters. I'm going to tell you something that maybe gonna be the saddest part of my speech. The last long conversation that I have with Mari Carmen, like a couple of weeks before she passes away, she told me, Paco, I don't want to die. And I say, and you don't. You have been in more difficult moments than this. And she told me, no, I know that this is almost the end of the story. Then when April 24th she passed away, I was mad, disappointed, and frustrated because I thought, how this person no es justo, no está bien, because he has to continue giving love to all of us. But this morning when I wake up, I said, I'm happy again, because look at this. Mari Carmen continue giving love all of us. Thanks to her, you are here, family, friends, alumni, every single person. Then, I repeat, the love in capital letters. The third word that I would like to tell you about Mari Carmen is, when I think about that, the next word is students. For her life, one of the most important things that she had was her students. Always is, this is for my students, this is for my students, my students, my students. I mean, okay, she take care of all of us, the faculty, all the people that was working with her, but students was the target. That's the reason because, guys, the Mari Carmen's baby, that is her programs in Madrid, are very successful, and all the students love her. When I saw the things that you wrote in Facebook celebrating the Mari Carmen life, I am very llorica. Llorica in Spanish is a person that cry very easily, no? And this is my case, no? Then when I open Facebook and I start to read, okay, I said, I continue later because my daughter told me, Daddy, are you okay? Yeah, I have some allergy, you know. But guys, no, it's unbelievable. It's so incredible that to see all of you together. It's like in a dream, no? To meet with people that you be in contact with them, like Bria and Joy in the 2001, 2003, 2004, 2000, I mean, all together. The only one problem is that, okay, Mari Carmen is not here, but no, she's with all of us. Then the only one thing that I would like to tell you is that if only we meet again in some years to celebrate the 25 the creation of the programs of Mari Carmen, or the 50 years, and I promise that I'm going to take care of her baby, okay? Thank you very much.
So I'm going to jump in before my mother very quickly to sort of say a few words, very briefly. First thing I'd like to mention is that I'm speaking, if you don't know me, by the way, I'm Victoria, I'm Mari Carmen's niece, and I'm speaking on behalf of both myself and my sister Martha, who really wanted to be here, but just couldn't make it, and I just wanted you all to know that everything I'm saying she believed wholeheartedly. Okay. When I was a kid, my aunt, this is the other thing. I call her Tata. She's not Mari Carmen to me, and that just sounds foreign, so I can't give the speech that way, okay? So just bear with me, Tata, that's who she is, okay? When I was a kid, my Aunt Tata loved to take me to the beach. Over the years, we had fostered a tradition where we would go into the ocean to jump the waves, and in between each undulation of the water, my aunt would ask me about my dreams for the future. I had so many dreams, and she indulged them all. One day, when the water was particularly choppy, Tata and I had jumped a colossal wave, and as the water settled, I came down hard on my aunt's foot. As it turns out, I broke her little toe. For the next hour, my aunt alternated between shrieks of "Ay!" and her almost hysterical, nervous laughter as my grandmother Mamita attempted to cure her broken toe with some mercury chrome and a Band-Aid. When my grandmother had about done with my aunt's seemingly hyperbolic response to a mere sore toe, and at this time we didn't know her toe was broken, Mamita smacked Tata upside her head with a resounding "Mari Carmen, yeah!" as if to diffuse the situation. Tata hobbled around in a foot brace for about a month after that incident, and she vowed that her days of jumping waves with me were over. But not for a moment, not ever, did Tata cease to dream with me. As I grew older, we traded the beachfront for long dinners shared over many bottles of wine. and we would talk about the joys of family and of friends and of love, about the perils of distance and time. We loved to wax philosophical and discourse like Socrates about the meaning of life. We used to describe this ritual as arreglando el mundo. But more than anything, we were feeding our own souls. Because of Tata, I learned to frequently take stock, to never take for granted the great marvel of my own existence, and to never forget how fleeting life is. To this day, when I find myself dwelling in negativity, I remember my long talks with Tata, and I chide myself for having wasted even a single precious moment on poisonous worry. As a child, I used to proudly declare to people that I had a crazy Tata. I assure you that I meant this as the highest compliment. It seemed to me that she was the only grown-up in the world who had managed to retain her childish sense of wonderment. She was willing to embark on spontaneous adventures, curious to entertain even the wildest notions, and daring to satisfy her most human whims. Her model was cut with bold edges. If ever she feared failure, I never knew of it. Her inventiveness had no semblance of practicality, and so she lived in an exhilarating state of continual disorder. I can certainly attest to this, as I spent many late summer nights sitting on her apartment floor and helping her to sort through piles of crumpled old receipts from museums in Florence and cafes in Istanbul. And I shared in her panic when the books came up short by a few dollars, which sent us digging through wrinkled pants pockets and old purses at 4 a.m. Time and again, Tata swore that she would be more organized during the next year. Time and again, mundane detail gave way to Tata's permanent chaos. In truth, even though she was constantly on the move with her students, taking them from one wonder of the world to the next, the true disorder came from within. Her mind was inundated with plans and ideas, convoluted machinations. And at every moment she was dreaming of her next adventure. But the beautiful thing about her was that these plans were never for her benefit alone. As James Baldwin once said, "The world is before you, and you need not take it or leave it as it was when you came in." Tata was always tasking herself to use her resources to help others, to make the world better, and to convert indifference to love. And she was a well of generosity, too. She always had time to listen and was never too important to help someone with a problem. She sometimes became too involved. She took too much responsibility for others and often exhausted herself in the process. This was the truth of it. She lived impractically because she was too busy saving everyone else. Whereas the world glutted itself on cynicism, Tata fed on optimism. Whereas the cynics cultivated misanthropy, she built up compassion. Mari Carmen lived as few people lived. She left her mark on the world by helping the people that live within it. Those of us who had the honor of knowing her well are smarter, wiser, and braver for having shared her company. Her legacy is composed not only of the tangible monuments that she built, like the AU Study Abroad program, but also of the countless lives that she improved with empathy and unassailable optimism. Now she is at rest, but her human missions are endowed with new vigor within the many people who loved her and resolved to allow her memory to live forever. We shall never forget her, and not for a moment, not ever, shall we cease to dream with her. Thank you.
Okay. I have never given public speech before. I'm going to make it very short. As you probably know by now, I'm Mari Carmen's sister. And obviously this has been a very, very difficult road for me. I know that we are here celebrating her life, and we have heard all the wonderful things that she has been and done. I am in a very unique position that I knew Mari Carmen as a child. When I came into the world, she was already there. And what I developed was an addiction to my sister, because I am probably her antithesis, and I'm ashamed to say it, and ashamed that I was, her sister, because where she saw light, I always saw darkness. When she saw a way out of a problem or a bad situation, I thought that it was impressioned by it. So I can tell you that no one, I'm sure that you all love your siblings, but I had a blessing that I couldn't have asked for more from God, from life, from anyone, to give me a better sister. Now, since her death, I have lived in darkness. I hope, obviously, to little by little come out of it. But I'm just going to leave you with some lasting words. I have nothing but gratitude. You speak about how grateful you are to the person who gave you so much. Imagine my own gratitude. But I can tell you, I'm going to leave you with 3 words. I was there the night before she passed away, including the night she passed away, obviously. But she woke up in the middle of the night, even though she was heavily sedated. And she said to me, of all the things that she could have said when she knew that she was about to enter into the unknown, she said, "Thank you, thank you, thank you." And that's all I can say now, because I have never been in a room with so many people and have felt so much love. The collective love that you show is a miracle to me. I don't think I have ever known anyone that have left this legacy. Everyone is here by choice, spending a beautiful Saturday afternoon, and everyone has opted to be here with nothing to gain. As her sister, and it's probably the only part of family, other than obviously my daughters, I say thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you.
Good afternoon, everybody, and thank you for being here. Mari Carmen, you were a lot to a lot of us. You were an angel at night, a mother in times of need, a mentor for life, a unique, kind, encouraging, and understanding dear friend. All of that and yet so much more that complicated words will not do justice. I remember as if it was just yesterday when I went through her files and found her application for the Madrid director position dated March 1995. In reading the letters of recommendation and other documents, I became even more fascinated with her because she was such a highly regarded professional. Mari Carmen was perfect for the task in Spain. And even though she was born in Havana, Cuba, Spain was Mari Carmen. She made the program an institutional for American University for the last 19 years. In those years, she created a lasting legacy that influenced and shaped the lives for many of us. As one of her students so aptly said, may we pay tribute to her life and memory by striving to have as positive an impact on others as she had on so many of us. Thank you, Gregory Noel. All of us who had the privilege to share and experience the Spain programs had a lot to give thanks. And Mari Carmen made that a tradition, especially at Thanksgiving and Valentine's dinners. Who could forget singing, gracias a la vida que me ha dado tanto? Me dio los luceros que cuando los abro, perfecto distingo lo negro del blanco. Thank you for sharing and coming, some of you who came from faraway places. Thank you for coming to celebrate Mari Carmen's life and enduring legacy at American University. May we honor her memory by making a positive impact on others and by making the Madrid programs bigger and better. Thank you. Please sign the memory book. There will be some food and drinks at the end in the back. And please join us in singing one of her favorite songs that we had the privilege to sing it with her the last time we were there in March this last year, that she loved to teach her students, teaching Spanish and teaching such a beautiful song. It's thanks for life, for everything that life gives us.